Hey all, Dave here. Welcome to my main channel where I mostly talk about philosophy and atheism. You may have caught my recent video about the ship of Theseus, a thought experiment that gets us thinking about the nature of identity. This video is kind of a follow-on from that. In this one I'm going to introduce a few ideas in philosophy relating to identity. Just in case you couldn't tell, I'm going to be making some videos focusing on the idea of personal identity and identity in general. The video on the ship of Theseus lays some groundwork for thinking about the topic. In this one, I'm going to introduce a few of the concepts that are related to answering questions about identity. These will come in handy for anyone wanting to study identity and anyone interested in the forthcoming videos on the topic. Let's begin with a quick description of what it means to say that something is identical. There is a lot of literature and discussion about what it means for two things to be identical, like a lot. This video isn't going to be a deep dive into all of that. Instead, it's just going to be a brief introduction describing some basics. So we'll start with the idea of things being strictly identical. To say that two things are strictly identical is to say that everything that is true of one is true of the other. This is something that we can see in something like mathematics, where the sum of 1 plus 3 is strictly identical to the sum of 2 plus 2. Both are the number 4. So both sums are strictly identical to each other. Anything we say about one total can be said about the other total. Going back to the ship of Theseus example, we can see that the boat where the rotting wood was replaced is not strictly identical to the boat that docked, or the boat that set sail. What can be said of the repaired boat cannot be said of the original that docked in the port, or of the one that set sail. The same with the couple under the tree, or the tree they were under, nor can it be said of me during the different times of my development, or lock socks, or the janitor's mop. But before we declare that the ship of Theseus is solved, let's take a look at a couple more concepts about what it means for things to be identical. When it comes to things being identical, we also have the idea of things being qualitatively identical. When two things are qualitatively identical, it means that they share certain properties, or, well, qualities. Let's take the example of something like identical twins here. We'll call them Bill and Ben. When we speak of identical twins, we aren't saying that everything that is true of one is true of the other. After all, there are two of them, which means that they occupy different physical spaces. If Bill is in the living room watching TV and Ben is in the garden mowing the lawn, then they would still be considered identical twins. Their names are also different, so that can't be something that is said to be true of one and true of the other. They are also indexically and numerically different. So when we call the twins identical, we are not saying that they are strictly identical. Instead, we're saying that they share certain properties or qualities. They share the same chromosomes. We could also argue that a reproduction of the Mona Lisa is qualitatively identical to the original Mona Lisa, as both share the same image. Two apples could be qualitatively identical to each other because they are the same type and the same shape and the same color. There are lots of times that we use the term identical and mean identical in a qualitative sense rather than in a strict sense. Another way that we refer to things being identical is one that I just mentioned, that of them being numerically identical. To say that things are numerically identical is to say that they are one and the same thing. Consider something like the morning star and the evening star. These two things are numerically identical as both the morning star and the evening star refer to Venus, making them one and the same thing, even though different names are used to describe them. Another easy way to understand this is through the use of superheroes. Consider Bruce Wayne and Batman. To the outside observer and those that do not know Batman's secret identity, they are different people. However, Bruce Wayne and Batman are numerically identical, as both are referring to the same person, or body. Both Batman and Bruce Wayne refer to the same body. The same could be said for Clark Kent and Superman, or Diana Prince and Wonder Woman. In each case, they are numerically identical because they are referring to different aspects of the same person. They are the same person being described in different ways depending on how they are perceived. So yeah, just a short video for this one, as it's simply explaining a few concepts of what it means for things to be identical to each other. As can be seen, or heard anyway, when we say that things are identical or the same, we aren't always speaking of things being strictly identical. Sometimes we refer to different things sharing certain qualities as being identical or the same, such as identical twins, and sometimes we are referring to things that we think are different but are actually identical or one and the same thing. As I said, this was just a brief introduction into a couple of the concepts that are useful for helping us to understand what it might mean for things to be identical, along with a few ideas that can be incorporated into the ship a Theseus thought experiment to help you think about whether the repaired ship is the same ship, or lock socks, or the janitor's mop, or the couple's tree. Try applying some of these concepts of identity to those thought experiments to see what your own thoughts are, and let me know some of your thoughts in the comments. If you found the descriptions of these concepts a little too basic, then don't worry, I'll be expanding on them in the future. For the moment, I'm simply laying some groundwork for the bigger discussions on personal identity and discussions about various ideas put forwards by philosophers like Locke and Hume and Parfit. Hopefully you'll find them as interesting as I do. Anyway, that's enough from me for this one. Like I said, it's just a short one this time round. All the videos in this series probably will be quite short. Don't forget to give the video a like if you found it interesting or useful, or a share if you think someone else might. If you feel like giving me a subscribe, then I would most definitely appreciate that, as it really helps out a small channel like mine. Until the next time, take care, and I hope life treats you well. Bye.